Today's webinar is presented by Greg Simmons from Markinson Business Solutions. Greg is a leading expert on the successful adoption of XRM/CRM in mid-sized organisations focused on innovation. He ran his own technology business for 17 years, directing the business in all aspects of the customer lifecycle, from marketing, new business development, to project initiation, delivery, and ongoing account management. So, without any further ado, I'd like to pass the microphone on to Greg.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. And first of all, I just want to thank Sarah and the people at Redback Conferencing for the opportunity to present today, and thank you all for your attendance. It's appreciated. Just to explain the first slide, of course, Sarah and myself will be doing the session today, Sarah being the facilitator extraordinaire of course, but also a customer of Markinson. So we started working with Redback Conferencing probably well over a year ago, and certainly seen some fantastic growth in the organisation. One thing I love about Redback recently is the caricatures that they've done. So I had to put that on the slide, and also I attempted to do one over the weekend of myself, but it's a free service, and I guess you get what you pay for. So that's the explanation of that. All right. So plan for today, talking about driving good process and behaviour through CRM. So I guess CRM often gets a bad rap, but it can generate some fantastic benefits when done well. But equally, if not done well, not designed well, can have some challenges. And certainly from reviewing some of the comments on the session for today, aware that people are aware of those challenges in terms of adoption, etc. So certainly I got into myself IT. I was a CPA by background, and I was involved in implementing technology. And what I often found is that whilst technology providers often understood the technology, what they didn't really do enough of is really tying it into what the business needed, the organisation needed. So really that's very much a cornerstone of the approach I'll be talking to you today about, making sure that you do understand the organisational requirements and benefits, etc., and really aligning that with the technology. The other aspect of CRM is I came from a background of implementing financial systems as a CPA. Now, when you do financial systems, of course, you know, if you need to generate an invoice to a member or whatever you need to do, it's a financial transaction, there's not much choice. You've got to do it. With CRM, there's often a choice. Therefore, we really need to look very carefully at the what's in it for me equation for CRM. So it's very much a requirement to design it well. If you design it well, usage and adoption. If not, it's going to be a challenge. So again, that's what we'll talk about today. So really what I want to do today is really get you excited about the possibilities with CRM, be it to reinvigorate what you've done in the past, or if you're starting on a new path to give you some pointers, some simple ideas. After the session, I'll also send you a CRM readiness questionnaire. It's a really good thing to work through, just to challenge yourself to make sure all the elements are there. So I'll make sure that comes through to you afterwards. And the links to some of the sources that I'm using today. So, plan of attack. What will we cover today? So what I'm going to talk about is a typical starting point that we often see that drives the start of CRM projects. We'll talk about some key concepts, a model for change, and I know a couple of people have commented on that, sort of some thoughts around change models. The blue ocean strategy. I know a couple of webinars ago in terms of the membership approach, the blue ocean strategy was raised. So I'm going to pick up on some of the points of that. Traps to avoid, and then we'll get into the mechanics of it. So what some of the things that can we actually do within CRM to drive good process and behavioural problems. All right, and it will wrap in questions then. At this point, over to you for a poll. So I'll hand over to Sarah.
Great. So we're just going to get to know you a little bit better now by launching a poll, and you should actually see it come up on your screen, and you should have 3 multiple choice answers. So the question is, do you currently have, or are you considering a CRM? So that's within your organisation. So maybe you do at the moment and you're starting to implement that. Maybe you do, but you're considering replacing your existing CRM, and no, but maybe you are considering. And if you have any comments to add around this, feel free to type it in the messages box and we can talk through that as well. And what we're actually seeing, Greg, is quite a similar amount of responses coming through, and I'll share those with everybody. Okay. It's quite even between B and C, but as you can see, yeah.
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay, so it's a real good mix. So some people are new to it. Well, certainly I'm seeing a considerable trend now of actually people having a second or third time around or replacing their existing older style CRM with something different. So all those things, and I think one of the things that's a great opportunity to reflect on the prior experience that an organisation has. There's so much value in actually learning from what's gone before and applying that when you start the process again. So that's a really, really important thing.
Thanks for that, everybody.
All right. What actually, and Sarah and I were just talking about this a minute ago in terms of what often happens in an organisation is there's various different departments, sections, etc. And what often happens is that we sort of get into these little islands of information, so that we may all share and work on a common financial system or a common CRM. However, what happens is that we get into these little silos. We're a little bit disconnected. And what tends to happen is that's where you tend to get a lot of Excel spreadsheets come up, etc. And also people tend to overuse email because it's a comfort thing. It's comfortable to send an email because you know they've got it or whatever. So email becomes a bit of a workflow management tool. And so that can often lead to a situation which is not optimal from a process perspective. So that's often where we're coming from. I know even in looking at with Redback, when they were looking at implementing CRM, they commented, however, the system became problematic as each department had different records of calls and requests from the same clients. With no central repository for information, it was impossible to share information or actions across the business, and no actual customer relationship process existed. So that's really, there's a fantastic opportunity to draw this information in and share it through one common area. So that's one of the reasons for really going down this path. I look at CRM as a journey, and it's really reflected back to me. We recently started working with a customer called Nico Joinery. They're a long-standing traditional family business, and everything's about enduring values and quality and service and expertise. When I sat down with them and understood their process, it's really about gathering the right information, asking the right questions, creating an experience for your customers, and making that unique, and using creativity and innovation. Well, very much CRMs, and out of that, their joinery product is special. So I look at CRM very much similar. If you get the right information, you design it well, and I think the design is important. Design is key. If you design it well, it'll work well for the organisation. But take your time, gather the right information, ask the right questions, create that experience. So that was a very good little analogy that helped me sort of focus on what's important. The other important aspect of CRM is what does it really mean? I noticed in the feedback there's a number of references to a membership management system. And what I've often seen is that members are important, it's really important, or customers are important, etc. But we often forget about what might influence. Who else influences us getting those members? There might be other organisations, people, associations that influence actually our members to come to us and stay with us, or our customers, etc. So it's really important. I guess this is where the X in XRM comes in. And there's a really good, if you go to YouTube and actually just type in XRM, there's a very good little video, short video by Microsoft about the meaning of XRM, and it's worth watching. So, and this is where the design comes into it, because if we're designing our system just for customers or just for members, all of a sudden we're sort of shutting ourselves out of capturing a lot of value around our influencers, our stakeholders, our employees, and what's often missed is our end users. So if we can design it well, and we've got the avenues there, we can actually easily collect that information. So that's another key element that I see. All right. The process that we go through as an organisation within Markinson is based on, I guess, information process measurement. What we're looking to do is to gather the key information that's really important for the organisation, determine the process that actually uses that information or keeps it updated, and then measure how well we're using that information in the process. So that in simple terms. The way we go about it is actually to run a workshop. So in our workshops, we actually start with concepts. Again, what I've often seen is that people get straight into design mode, and that's often dangerous, and we'll come back to that in a sec. Really what we want to do is actually, let's take a step back. Let's actually look at the concepts of CRM, what it means, and actually really understand what it means to the business, or to the organisation. That way we can design in what we need to. The other thing is really to, get your hands, dirty. So if you're going down the path to start looking at CRM, just, we give our customers a learning assignment, which is a little bit of homework that they can take away and just start using it. Because design's all about the provider and the organisation working together to actually come up with a good result. So get in and have a go, just start using it. That way, when you get into design mode, you get a lot better result. And really, I guess the last point of that is continuous improvement. So as this next slide shows, the concept is you see the sort of circle, and we've got information, process, measurement. So really what we want to do is, CRM is a journey. What we don't want to do is actually try and achieve too much up front. We want to actually capture what's important, make sure we do have that process, measure it, and then keep improving. So that we go around and it becomes a continuous improvement process. Things to look out for. Things I see regularly is that it's human nature when you actually look at something and think about the possibilities that are there with CRM to think of all the things that you can do with it, all the information you can gather. It is human nature to get excited by it, but you've really got to manage that process, because if we get too much information, one, it can overload, it can make it look complex, and that can actually affect adoption. So, in your sales team or your membership acquisition team, if we're throwing too much information at them, they're going to think, I've got to fill all this information in. So that they feel about it, it's an administrative load. So we've got to manage that well. A good test of that is that when you're thinking about adding this new field to the form, ask yourself, what is going to use that field? Is there a process that's going to use it? Or is actually there a process to keep it updated? Because the other challenge, if it's there and no one's actually entering any information into it, it not only makes people feel like they have to fill it in and therefore adds administrative burden, but also it means that information will go stale and it'll be becoming irrelevant. So both would impact an implementation. The last thing is to question, is it valuable to measure? Again, what we recommend is let's focus in on the really core processes and really get them right, measure those processes, and sort of keep it simple, I guess, approach, the KISS principle. So that's some of the, I guess, concepts that we would work on within our implementations. And again, just to finish off, remember the key information, key processes, and key measures. That's quite important. The other thing we see a lot in implementations, and we often do rescue sort of projects as well, is that we're often so concerned about the end users and how they will use the system to train the managers. So this is very much a change management aspect of it. So I call it the rhythm of the business. So when you're designing the CRM, you've really got to design into it how you're going to reinforce its use, again, what often happens is, and again, it's human nature that people get excited, and at day one, everyone's behind this thing and everyone's going to use it. But then you go back into the organisation 6 months later and the usage has dropped off. That's because we haven't designed into the system the way we're going to reinforce it. And often that sits with the managers. So really what we want to do is tie in CRM into the rhythm of the organisation. So what's an example of that? The example I've got here is actually more of a sales-driven situation, but apply it to your own organisation. The best way to think of that is actually think about the weekly, monthly, whatever meetings you have. Think about how you can actually bring information from the CRM to that meeting and use it within that meeting to have a discussion with your reports. If you can do that and you can coach and train your managers to do that, it'll become part of their everyday and it will naturally be reinforced. So again, to make the point, really important to train your managers, make them feel empowered. Don't make them feel threatened by it. If they don't have the right information available to them, the right training, they're going to feel threatened and they're not going to get on board, and that's going to be the biggest impact. Again, one of the key things there is actually measure it. So measure how well each of your managers, and their teams is doing in terms of the adoption, and coach them on that. All right. So that's a little bit about the rhythm of the business. One of the things that came through the feedback was also in terms of a model for change. So there's a model called ADKAR, which is giving you 5 essential building blocks for change. It's based on Prosky's research, and there were about 3 separate studies of over 500 organisations. And they mentioned there's really 3 phases of change. There's preparing for change, there's managing for change, and there's reinforcing change, as I've just said, with the rhythm of the business. So let's talk about really some of the elements here. So building block 1 is just to build awareness of the need for change. Building block 2 is really get people involved in the process. So build a desire to support and participate. Of course, it's a given really that needs to come from the top. Really, a project to be successful, a significant change project needs the buy-in from the CEO, managing director, board down. If it's going to be successful, it needs that level of input and support. So don't underestimate that. We've got to give our team the knowledge of how to change. So again, we've got to take them on the journey of how to actually adopt and work through it. Therefore, of course, with that goes that we've got to make sure they've got the right skills to be able to support it, and also we need to have the right behaviours. And finally, we need to have that plan in place for reinforcement to actually sustain. I think it's true to say communicate is what sort of goes with this. So, from the top down, make sure we've got a good communication mechanism that people understand the importance of change, right through to progressive steps. What's it going to mean for our organisation? What's it going to mean to individuals and managers, etc.? So really communication is the underlying thing to I guess, facilitate the ADKAR model. All right. So what we're going to do now, we're going to talk a little bit about the Blue Ocean strategy. So we might just hand over to Sarah at this stage to do our second poll.
Excellent. So we're going to launch this poll, and this is really, once again, just getting to know you a little bit more and to see whether or not you've actually heard of this. So pretty simple answers, A for no, B for yes, and C, yes, plus your organisation uses the methodology as well. You may already have it implemented, and you may already be using it on a regular basis. And if you do, we'd love to hear about it. And if you do answer B, which is yes, and you do have some other comments to add, feel free to type that in the messages box. Maybe you have used it in the past, maybe you're looking into using it, and we can actually see those responses coming through now. And I think as you've probably...
I'm interested to see what...
I might let you hold out for a little bit longer.
Oh, okay, can I keep you in suspense?
Yeah. I think you're probably assuming that there's an overwhelming response for A.
Okay.
Yes, there we go.
All right, so yes, okay. So no one's using the methodology. 10% have heard. The rest haven't. So okay, all right.
Colin and Sandy both had heard of it before.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Colin and Sandy.
Great.
All right. So let's talk about Blue Ocean strategy for a moment. This originally came from Chan Kim and Renee Morborg. There was a Harvard Business Review article written, and then they've gone on to actually publish it, and actually there's quite a movement really going on about the Blue Ocean strategy. I'll just read out for a moment sort of how they describe it originally on the cover of their article. They said, competing in overcrowded industries is no way to sustain high performance. The real opportunity is to create blue oceans of uncontested space. So when I first saw this utilised was in, I'm a coach in customer-centric selling, and during that training, often the challenge is to get people to think beyond what we call active leads. So in other words, someone who's actively looking, to get them just to not just, that's great getting leads from marketing, however, there's another dimension to it, because if we can actually source our own leads, we'll often get a better chance of success of actually winning that business. Now that applies whether it's sales. I know a lot of you are membership organisations. We've actually, in customer-centric selling, we've also dealt with membership organisations, and it's the same thing. We might not call it sales and selling, but really what we're doing is member acquisition. And so we're looking at different ways to attain members rather than just going out through sort of the normal marketing channel. So that's really where the concept from me came from. Let's expand on that a little bit. So we've got really and it's a bit, so the language is the calm of the blue ocean versus the bloody red ocean. So let's just explain that a little. So if I've got a lead come in, and it is using that as a simple example, that means that they're actually actively looking. They've started to research, they're probably talking to competitors, and so what's happening there is that it's actually the bloody ocean because it's a competitive. It's dog eat dog, dog eat dog. It's everyone's fighting for this business. So you've got a set chance of actually winning that business. So that's I guess the crowded red ocean. So what about our blue ocean, in the calm of the blue ocean? So out there could be people that actually don't know it's a priority for them. They failed previously. Maybe they've actually tried something before, it didn't work, and they put it at the back of the mind, it's not going to work for me. Or they're just plain unaware. So what the Blue Ocean strategy talks about is to try and avoid the head-to-head competition. Search for your differentiation. So as a membership organisation, what is it that makes you unique? What's your differentiator? How can I actually then go out and find people that aren't actively seeking it, but we can actually make them aware of our membership services? And we could find a whole new area that we could actually grow our membership base on. That could be something as simple as a new partner we can work with. There's a number of different ways that, it's not limited, this strategy. So the study was based on 150 strategic moves over many years that the authors basically reviewed. And again, what they found was people who created this new space were very much around what's called value innovation. So they innovated, and what they tended to find when they found these new blue ocean areas is the margin or the cost of acquisition was a lot lower versus their competition. So it really not only created growth for the organisation, it actually created very profitable growth. And so I guess that's the cornerstone of the Blue Ocean strategy. The Blue Ocean strategy is a systematic approach. It uses it's 6 principles, and I won't go into those today. I'm really just trying to give you the high level, so if you want to go and do some more research on it, I really encourage you to do so. So certainly in the customer-centric selling process, it's very much a cornerstone of it. They're actually, we're working the Blue Ocean, not just the bloody Red Sea. So that gives you a little bit of an intro into the Blue Ocean. Let's talk about an example. I guess the best probably example that they certainly relate to, or one of the, I guess, examples we all would relate to that they've put forward is iTunes. So obviously, Apple weren't the first to come up with the devices. However, they were first to actually work with the music industry and actually create iTunes. So again, they created their own space. They got beyond the device into provide a whole experience for their customers. And of course, in being the first, they were very profitable in doing that. So I guess that's a fantastic example of a Blue Ocean strategy. One of my own customers is looking at a situation. They provide servicing of equipment. And one thing with the pace of technology that's going on today, what they've found is that in recent releases of the models of this equipment, it's almost a throwaway mentality that you just ship out one part and put in another. Well, they've also got a lot of people who have equipment that's more than sort of 3-4 years old, and that's not being serviced well anymore. Everyone's sort of moved on. So what they're doing is using and actually going back to some of the manufacturers and actually focusing on that particular market. For them, that's huge high value in terms of the margin they'll get. They'll probably double their margin than what we're getting on the core business. So again, they're opening up a whole new market of opportunity at a high margin. So there's a couple of examples for you. So look, I can really commend it to you to have a think about it. Some of the signals that you might look at for to think about to get you thinking about it. Is your company faced heightening competition from domestic and international rivals? Do your sales representatives increasingly argue that they need to offer deeper and deeper price discounts to make sales? One of the often key triggers. They want a discount? Well, let's talk about that some more. Are you finding you need to advertise more? And this is, I guess, a key one that I see in membership organisations. That are we finding you need to advertise more to get noticed in the marketplace? Yet the impact of each advertising dollar spent is falling. So if we're applying Blue Ocean strategy, we can get a lot more bang for our buck, I guess, in terms of that. Is your company focused more and more on cost cutting, quality control, brand management, at the expense of growth, innovation and brand creation? Again, maybe a prompt to maybe have a think about this some more. Do you blame your slow growth on the market? Do you see outsourcing to low-cost companies or countries as a principal prerequisite to regain competitiveness? I guess that's just a few of the things. And again, what I'll do at the end is give you a link to actually, so you can explore some of these things after this session. All right, so that's the Blue Ocean strategy. Let's talk about another little example that I see. And let's start now to link this through to how this plays out in CRM. So Redback Conferencing and CRM. So Redback, we were talking, Jeff popped in before just to say howdy, and we reflected that when we initially started working with Redback, it was around 5 to 6 people. So it's massive growth since then, which was just fantastic. And I see really to achieve that sort of growth requires, a bit of a Blue Ocean approach. And certainly I've seen that in their innovation and the different things they're doing. And Sarah, if you want to comment on this, welcome to, and sort of what your observations are in terms of what you've seen with CRM. But when applying this to CRM, I think what worked well with Redback is that they took guidance. We have been doing this for many years within Markinson, well over 10 years, or probably 12 years. As you can see, I haven't got a lot of hair to show for all the CRM implementations I've done. So, they took the guidance. They just started using it. They just started using it, which is often the key, and they learnt a lot through that. And what we did is actually then we used that learning and that initial sort of process to start developing and refining processes. So they knew they wanted to grow. They knew to grow they had to get some good processes in place. So we ran a little workshop. We defined some of those sales and marketing and customer acquisition and retention processes, and we started to incorporate that into the CRM with them. And that started to, I guess, drive some behaviours, which is what they were looking for. Sarah, is there anything any observations you want to make on that?
Yeah, I think with any CRM implementation, you're always going to get feedback from different people in an organisation. We've used this, we've used that, this one works better, this one doesn't. But I think the key for us was to actually just eliminate all of that. There were a few people that hadn't used the CRM before, so the whole thing, as Greg just said, is to get everyone to start using it, because that's the best type of feedback. And as long as you take that information and get as much negative feedback as you possibly can, and then improve on that, and then start implementing the CRM, I think that works the best for our organisation.
Yeah. And I guess the observation is that process never stops either.
No, it doesn't. It's constantly on a weekly basis, changing and customising the CRM. And I don't think that's anything to be scared of. I think that's actually a positive thing, because it means that you're constantly improving processes and procedures, which are never ending. So, yeah. Indeed.
And it's looking for that, looking for the positive and negative feedback, because, we can always get better. And often... it's just finding that little bit better way to do things, etc. And also continue to be aware of the what's in it for me. Often we will get into, and we'll talk about this in a moment, who's driving the CRM usage, and often that impacts different people in different ways. We need to be aware of our impact on some of the other departments, if you like, that they're also using it, and we'll come back to that in a sec. So, look, I think Redback's a great, fantastic example of what can be achieved, and what they now have a fantastic platform in place to sort of help drive their business, which is exciting, really exciting. Just leading on from what we started to talk about, some traps to avoid. I often hear the term, and this is a term that really comes more from, I think, technology vendors from actually people using it, is this concept of seamless integration. So to me, that's a little bit of a cop-out. It sort of means that, we can just, pass a whole lot of information to the CRM and not really think about it because it's all seamless. I think that's often a challenge. I've seen a lot of implementations fail because, and we touched on this before, we've overloaded with information. We think, fantastic, we can get all this information out of our ERP system or our financial system and actually put it into the CRM. Sometimes it's not so relevant to do that. So it's a matter of thinking carefully through that process. In membership, it's probably the other way around. Often what we do is we want to actually capture all that financial transactions, etc., in the CRM, which is also fine, but again, we need to design it well so it's very usable. So both aspects are implied. I think my point here is just, I've seen the approach where people just throwing this information in the CRM and thinking that's a great thing. It's not necessarily. Think about it, design it, think about how people use it. Back to the IPM model that we talked about. The other thing is to be very much aware of is actually who's driving CRM and what the impact of that. Let's talk about some examples. So if it's a sales driven, maybe it's the sort of stick approach that we're going to get all our reps to make sure they enter all their activities, whatever they are, we're going to measure it. Now that's actually a positive thing if done well, but if it's just the big stick approach and we haven't considered the what's in it for me, that's not necessarily going to be great for adoption. And a lot of CRM implementations have failed because people sort of got 6 months in and didn't want to use it anymore. So, be careful of that. Again, a well-intended approach is that IT see that, their competition is implementing CRM. We really need to get it too. Our business needs CRM. And they're forced to actually try and implement it with a reluctant business. And again, that often can result in some issues around adoption and money spent. So, be careful with that. Finance driven. Often finance think, fantastic, we can push all the debtors information and all that information to our sales and membership and customer service team, and happy days, they can do the rest. Again, be careful of that. Often, the finance people are the best to actually be doing certain processes. If we're pushing it out onto our membership retention team or our sales team, maybe they're not the best people to do it. They're not the most effective. So again, another one that I've really seen, and that often ends up with the perception that this CRM, all it does for us is it adds admin, which is not great. So it's something to be aware of. A marketing approach. So fantastic. We're going to implement our new CRM, and we're going to get all our customer service team and all our sales and membership people to actually gather all the information for us, and then we'll be able to use all this information. So again, we've got to make sure that if we're going to do that, that's great. That could be a fantastic strategy, but it needs to be part of a holistic approach to make sure it's just part of the equation. Again, what's in it for each department, so make sure that we're covering that. So really it's that in control versus empowerment. If we're just a control element versus actually making sure that we understand the overall benefit of the organisation, we're empowering our different departments and we're getting them on board in the conversation and the communication, then we can avoid those traps. So that's some of the things to consider. All right. How are we doing for time, Sarah? We've
just over halfway.
Okay, all right. So not doing too bad. All right. So the next, I think it's time for another poll, in fact. So
yeah.
Let me just...
And this will be the last poll, so it's the last bit of work that anyone needs to do. This is just in relation to workflow or business process management. And maybe, Greg, if you'd like to elaborate a little bit more on this to explain it.
Yep. So just a question, within your existing CRMs or businesses, I guess what we're going to talk about now is what sort of problems we can solve with our processes and behaviours. And I'm interested to know if you're using any tools to assist you with this at the moment. So this could be a workflow within CRM. It could be what's called a business process management suite, which is actually a tool that actually helps you to develop workflows and processes from a technology perspective. So I'm interested to see if people are using that at the moment. Yep.
And if you are using a certain software or maybe a certain tool, feel free to type that in the messages box down there. And then we can share these results with everybody so we can get a better glimpse. There we go.
Okay.
Most people know, but they're planning to.
Yeah, okay. All right. So that's good. So quite a few people are using it already, so that's good, and I hope you're getting benefits. Certainly I find a lot of organisations, there's the ability to expand the use, so it's good to see 5% there looking to expand what they're doing. And a lot of people considering, which is really good. And I guess that's sort of reflective of, the audience and probably the core of this particular presentation. So let's get into now. What I'm going to do is talk to you about some specific examples and the mechanics, I guess, of how to go about that. So and just to take a step back for a sec, so an example of this is that, so within, when we sat down with Redback, one of the training sessions we had was to internalise the ability for Redback to create these little workflows. So within the CRM they use, there's a workflow process engine. And it's quite easy to use. It needs some training, like anything, but once you know the capability, it's easy then to mould it to the business and make changes. So that's a sort of example that we'll sort of go through. So let's talk about some things. So I guess the first thing that this would be relevant for is firefighting. So sending an instant alert. So a member's called in and we've logged an incident against the member and it's a complaint. And straight away, as soon as that is logged, it might go to a relationship manager inside the business to actually be aware of it and actually help address the issue. So it's creating an alert based on certain business rules. A customer gets, from a sales perspective, a customer gets put on credit stop, as the example there. So what happens with that? So what we do is we build within the CRM or the business process management tool a little workflow. So in this case, this is for the credit stop. It's sort of showing you a little visual representation of it. So this is one of the tools we use within our business. So basically it's a little trigger, gets set by the database. We pick that up, we pull the information of the customer, we format as an HTML, we send that as an email, and we create a little text message and send a text message as well if it's a certain type. So in that scenario, we might have certain people who are on the road, so maybe they don't have access to email, or it's actually really urgent. It's it's our A-class customer who's got an issue, so we're going to text some people as well. So that's an example of an instant alert that we might do. And really the benefits of that will be a proactive response. So a long time ago, I worked with a customer who was really losing market share. They were losing it because the perception was their competitors were a lot more responsive to them. They were slow to react, etc. So what they did is use this sort of business process management so that, for instance, when the date of a particular task that was due to be delivered to a customer or a member was changed, the salesperson involved got actually a text message. So they can immediately pick up the phone, intervene, have a discussion with the customer, be responsive. That was just one simple example. So again, that's some of the benefits that might come out of that. Overall, better communication. What's another example? Not being informed. Feeling that, I just don't have the information at my fingertips that I need. So again, a great example of that is actually just to automate a little HTML email that might come out with some information that might have a report attached, or just that little information in the body of the email. So that's another example. The advantage of that, really very much a time saving. So it saves people having to go looking for the information. It actually arrives in their email box. So internally, I get a little email once a week that gives me a little snapshot of my, my sales pipeline, and that's a great little prompter, a little reminder to keep it updated. So that's, it arrives on Friday morning, and it's a great little prompter. It's such a simple thing, but it's a fantastic little prompter for me by the end of the day to actually have updated my pipeline ready for our sales meetings on Monday. Now, what does that do for our sales meeting? Makes it a lot more effective because we use our time better. Time spent running reports. How much time have we spent over the years of just going into a system, running a report, emailing it to everybody, whatever? So, automate that. Just there's avenues within these workflow engines just to set it and forget it. So the reports run, and whether that be, and also great for sending information to customers. So again, internally we use this to actually deliver a report to our customers on a fortnightly basis. I get visibility of that, but it's just automatic, and so it saves me time, and it gives that, proactivity. So again, the benefits being customer satisfaction and ongoing productivity, really key there. Time spent on routine communication. And I guess this is a great example of, for a membership organisation, of this concept around the Blue Ocean strategy of really our innovation sort of concept. So if we've got a new membership process, so what happens there? So, someone might sign up via the website, for instance, or via a customer service team, a member service team. That triggers a number of different things. What if we could actually, via the website, if they signed up as a new member, automatically launch an email immediately, thanking them for their application and telling them that someone would be back to them within the next 24 hours. We now create an activity with inside CRM, and if that activity hasn't been completed, say by 2 hours before we're due to respond, a little escalation happens. Once the member application has been approved, then it could automatically trigger a welcome letter to the member. It could also then automatically trigger an activity for one of our relationship managers to give them a call in a week's time. The possibilities are endless with this, and the opportunity to improve our service and reduce our time is significant. So really, really strong capability for membership organisations, but just generally. So again, the benefits: labour saving, speed, better communication. Bit of a no-brainer, really. So and there's lots of things we can use to deliver using that capability, and lots of benefits that we can have in sort of getting people to utilise a member portal or a customer portal more. We can sort of build those things in together. A couple of things to move through quickly because I'm just aware of the time. So just automated email marketing, and actually being able to sort of launch the upsell, cross-sell of that. So we can automatically generate things within our sales process. We can automatically settle in bits of information, and we can make sure we're nurturing our customers so that we have a better retention rate. And just, again, one of the really core things that then the workflow can do is actually start to automate approvals. So a good example is one of our customers, in taking an incident, certain incidents may actually generate a claim. So they've got to actually undertake a process to determine whether the person's got a valid claim or whether it's just an issue of how they're utilising the product that's been sold. So that's a workflow-driven process. So it gets the right people involved. So, moves from the customer service team through to the technical service team. It then moves into finance. So finance have a role to actually assess it and on. So that's all driven by workflow activity that's going on. So again, that means people don't think things don't drop through the cracks and things are done in a timely, efficient manner. So another really good example of where that can be used. Finally, the last couple of points is really just integration. So, workflow can help with putting two systems together. So that might be, website integration. It could be, we'll talk about social media in a moment in our new trend section. But there's lots of different things we can use this sort of capability and technology for, just for bringing systems together. And again, because these tools are embedded often in the applications we're using, the cost of actually creating these workflows has certainly been driven down in recent years. Okay. So to recap, what's this all about? So really, we've started talking about, the Blue Ocean strategy, looking at the concepts, designing well. So really what we're trying to do with that is actually making sure that the processes we're designing are good processes. The behaviours we actually are designing are the behaviours we want, and they're aligned with the growth of the organisation. Once we've got those in place, we don't want to automate to chaos. That's not good. So we want to make sure that the design is good. But once we've got a strong design, then the workflow business process management acts like a robot. It does the work for us. It becomes easier to manage, productivity increases, and profits rise. So that's really what the technology side is going to do for us. All right. I guess just before we're getting towards the end anyway, but shall I finish this bit off, Sarah, and then take questions at the end?
Yeah.
Probably this stage, because
while we're going, if anyone does have any questions, feel free to type them in, and we'll get to them once this section's over.
All right, cool. All right. So look, I wanted to share with you a few sort of emerging trends in the market, and certainly, I guess we're all very much aware of social media. People talk about, and often the challenge here is actually, I guess, separating the hype from what actually can add value to our organisations. And certainly, organisations like Salesforce have very much, created some, I guess, discussion around it with their applications like Chatter and Ripple. So really, they're applications that are actually, they're effectively social media within an organisation. So they allow you to have, like effectively a Facebook type scenario within an organisation to actually start to, share experience, share the information around organisation, even down to the ability to be able to praise each other. So, you know, I can actually go in and actually praise someone and it gets shared and people can like that and comment on it, etc. So there's a lot of really, I guess, information around that new type of capability. Another social enterprise application is called Yammer, and Microsoft have recently acquired Yammer to build within their suite of products. So really what we're seeing is this emerging trend between the social organisation, the social enterprise, so building a social community within our organisation, and CRM, which has traditionally been building the community outside our organisation. So what you'll see is those two trends start to come together. So that really the Chatter and the Yammer and the equivalent products in other CRMs will start to mould those internal communications with external communications. I recently saw a presentation by one of our partners where you know, there's some really cool tools in Twitter to be able to actually do searches on the topics that are coming up in Twitter, but also look at the emotion. You can actually measure the emotion of a tweet, and actually based on that you can bring that back into then a CRM, and you can have maybe people monitoring certain keywords in their CRM and turning that into a customer service incident or case or into a lead, etc. So it's really starting to combine, you know, the whole social, building a community through, and CRM will be a key way of delivering that. CRM is a place where we can actually bring all this information together and share it. So CRM is a great tool to be able to actually leverage some of these new trends. So that's a little bit on that. Certainly, look, if you've got any information, would like the information, I'll actually share some of that after the session, Sarah, just on that, and welcome to take questions on that.
Just to note, any additional information that Greg has mentioned today, we'll actually be including that on the recording email, which will be sent in 48 hours. And if you complete the satisfaction survey, we will actually then send that to you. So there'll be a lot of different useful links on there, I guess, to look back on.
Indeed. And one of those links will be a link, and this is how the Blue Ocean people put it, how blue are you? And it's a little test, and it's a little set of questions you can go through, which I reckon they're really good. They're very thought-provoking, and really something good to look at as a team, you know, within your organisation to really make that assessment. So are you true blue or are you bloody red? So there you go. So just to, that finishes my content for the session.
Excellent. We'll get to some questions now for closing comments. And we did have a question come through to myself earlier. So Cindy's from an organisation of around 20 people and you're looking to implement a CRM. From your experience, and I know it's a bit like how long is a piece of string sort of question, how long should that take if it's done properly?
Yeah, look, I would say, you know, three months is around a time frame. It sort of depends on your resources. I think the key thing, Cindy, there is actually just to make sure you get the right time for design. People often just think of that time frame. I'd almost say 3 months once you've done the design, because that recognises your own processes, because you've got to run the company at the end of the day, or the organisation, and still keep that going and implement. So I would say 3 months, but actually make sure you give yourself time to design. If your design is right, that 3 months will go like a dream, and it'll be really good. If you don't spend that time up front doing the design, well, it becomes problematic. So yeah, comment on that.
And also with the social slide that we had up earlier, the emerging trends, with those sort of tools, how easy are they to actually track what's being said within the organisation? Yeah,
actually, surprisingly. I was just telling Sarah actually before we started that so we use Microsoft CRM internally, and we saw this announcement about Yammer, for instance, as a specific example. So I actually went and researched, and within a half an hour I had a Yammer site set up for our organisation. I'd started to, we had sent some links to some additional staff members. I'd created groups for professional services sales, and I'd actually done my first tweet by putting as #YAM at the end, it actually put it onto our corporate Yammer site. So that was all done in half an hour. So, and I think that's the thing, people have an expectation these days that these tools are going to be easy to use, and they certainly are. So yeah, I encourage you to, just like we talked about CRM, just have a go, start using them.
Great.
Yep.
That seems to be all the questions coming through for now, which is great. But if you do have any questions that you may think of afterwards, feel free to let us know, and we can always forward those on to Greg, and I'm sure he'll be delighted to answer them for you. But on behalf of Redback, I'd really like to thank you all for joining today, and also thank Greg for his time. It's been very inspiring and thought-provoking. And like I said earlier, keep a lookout for that email containing the recording and presentation slides. And if you have any questions about today or any of the other webinars, feel free to let us know. We're here to help. So I'd now like to hand it over to Greg for closing comments before we end the webinar.
Okay. So yeah, again, thank you for for attending. I appreciate your time. I respect your time. And look, I guess the closing message is, design. Think about it. Think about it. Your organisation. Be innovative. It's a great tool for innovation. So it can do fantastic results. So yeah, I'll leave it with you. Enjoy it.
Excellent. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye.